a person dropping their first official album, Morray, with Street Sermons. Dave, you mentioned that you wanted to give this a listen. It was a pretty tight 30-ish minute album. Thought there were some good moments and some moments on it. How are you feeling about Street Sermons?
Yeah, Street Sermons actually is being called his commercial mixtape, his debut mixtape for Morray on Interscope after catching a big hit starting last fall with Quicksand, which really I think is the anchor of most of his fans, but he seems to have been attracting listens and streams to other songs since then, so it seems to be a genuine build up here. But yeah, I mean, I think when you see some bit of virality that seems to be sticking, it's always important to pay attention. And I think in Moray's case, he's kind of interesting to me because there's a really obvious comparison in terms of modern people in hip hop. That'd be Rod Wave, in
Hmm.
terms of singing rappers. But I actually like Moray, I think, a little bit more, song to song anyway, because he seems to have a more like positive like tinge to his sound. Like Rod Wave has only gotten sadder and sadder as he's released music, and to his credit, it's working for him. But uh Murray, I don't know if it's just like that Fayetteville, North Carolina like drawl he brings, or the gospel inspirations you can pick up on here and there, but it seems to be a little bit more upbeat, even if it's not always like positive, lyrical subject matter. But he seems to be uh like like happier, even when it's not happy. If that makes sense. Rod Wave sometimes he's a downer, so it depends. You got to be in the mood for him, I think.
Yeah, that like rapping, singing that you mentioned certainly hard to kind of I think move away from that comparison only because Rod Wave also up and coming, or obviously more established than Morey, but still in the early part of his career. Anyways, I do think he's more upbeat, but I also didn't find the music always super interesting. I do feel like it kind of sounded samey at points.
Mm.
But I do think there's a couple of standouts like early on, like trenches into quicksand. Obviously, quicksand's a bona fide hit, but then I also think there's a couple of other like switched up later on. I thought was a pretty decent track. These are also the ones that are the most played on Spotify, so I think these are kind of the consensus ones as I'm looking through here that stood out to people. Any of those tracks stood out, or anything else that you really liked?
Yeah, like I do like Trenches, and that's funny because he's
Yeah.
like really singing on that. Like
Mhm.
sometimes when we talk about this all the time now, like melody and hip hop and how it's the dominant force and like the main thing that people latch onto with their sounds these days. But that case in Rod Wave also has been doing this too. It's like sometimes you're just actually singing. It's not just like sing rapping. It's like legit singing. But I think Murray manages to handle it well, and that's what I think what makes Quicksand so great is that it's like really catchy, and he still is kind of singing on like on that melody, but there's a hip hop cadence to it, and yeah, it works. But I do agree. I mean, this kind of stuff in general for me, like it'll
Uh-huh.
definitely blend, and sound similar. So unless you're really engaging with the lyrics, and he does talking about some stuff in terms of like having a daughter and not having a place to stay, and like the struggle stuff you can imagine. But I think he's at his best when he's kind of molding the two sounds, and for the most part, it doesn't feel like he really goes like hard rap on any of this. Like he really is always sticking to the heavy melody and the singing. But yeah, I like trenches. I like switched up as well.
Yeah, I think those are the two standouts for me as well. And yeah, I think your analysis is right. A lot of times, the singing, rapping can kind of sound samey by it, especially if the album is produced. I think also in the same way. Like I don't think any of the beats really stand out as like really catchy or necessarily like really impressive. It sounds like it's more so just his overall ability to rap and sing pretty well. And for a first time, I think there's a lot to like here, but I think there's a lot of room for growth as well.